Hey, Corey Wilkins from Ears Only Audio here. Sorry I haven't put up a video in a while. I don't even know where the time has gotten, to tell you the God's honest. I've been doing the ARC radio shows, but that's only one day a week. I don't know where the rest of my days have gone. I've had a few things to do in the studio and whatnot. I don't know. 2 kids will do that to you, I guess. Anyhow, today, no fancy examples, or we're not going to dive into Pro Tools. I just want to talk to you a minute about sort of an argument, a discussion that happens a lot when we talk about mixing. So what we're going to discuss today is the much maligned solo button. If you watch a lot of other videos on YouTube by a lot of, super famous mix engineers, you will hear them regularly say, don't spend too much time in solo. Nobody listens to anything, like nobody solos up the kick drum at home and says, wow, that's a great kick drum sound. They hear the song. So don't do things in solo. Mix your song with everything up and EQ the kick drum with everything in. EQ the vocals or the guitars or the snare drum or whatever with everything in, and only use your solo if you really need to cut a specific frequency and you need to find out exactly where it is, because you're just going to use this really narrow notch and pull it down. And I agree with them with a caveat. When you're just starting out on your mixing journey, this is very daunting because you don't always know what to listen for, and you can't hear all the subtle changes that you might need to make. Let's say you're just adding a little bit of compression to an acoustic guitar, and you want it to hit it maybe 1 or 2 dB tops. It's really hard to hear if that compressor is doing what you want it to do on the acoustic guitar when that one acoustic guitar is one of 40 tracks in a mix. So the temptation is to solo it up when you're new, so you can really hear what it's doing. And there are a lot of very good mixers who will tell you not to put things in solo. Well, here's where they're right. They are right in saying don't put things in solo and EQ it and compress it to where it sounds great in solo. So I have finally, with enough practice, I'm starting to get confident enough in my mixing skills and being able to rely on my ears to do most of my mix with everything on. I've just really started sort of asking myself to do that. And I've had some success with it over my last couple of mixes. I think they're better than the previous mixes where I did use the solo button quite generously. But the reason that people will advocate for you mixing the project with all the tracks up is because too many people fall into the temptation of putting a guitar in solo and making it sound awesome. It's this huge, badass sounding guitar tone. And then you take that out of solo and you put the other guitar in solo and you make a huge, badass guitar tone. And you have a huge kick drum and a huge bass guitar and a huge snare drum. And by the time you get to the vocal, everything's so huge. But then, so you make a huge vocal because you have that in solo. And then you're like, okay, cool. You pull everything out of solo and your mix sounds like somebody threw a big heavy blanket over the top of it because everything you did in solo, and it's huge. So they're absolutely right if you use the solo button like that. Here is how I overcame that while still using the solo button so I could learn what 1 or 2 dB of gain reduction sounded like with this specific compressor versus the other compressor. Is what I did is I would listen to the whole song with all tracks up, and I would get a volume balance, and I would get a stereo balance. So I do all my volumes and pans. Now, As things moved along, I might change a couple of those, but I got a decent static mix that I was happy with. And then I would say, okay, the kick drum, the volume is good, but it's not jumping out. So I'm going to need, a little bit more of a point. Maybe I should find the nice spot on this kick drum somewhere, usually between 4 and 5K, and give it a little boost. So I would solo up the kick drum, I'd grab my channel strip EQ, and I'd boost, somewhere between 4 and 5K, whatever sounded cool, and get my kick drum. And then I'd take it out of solo and say, okay, it's really starting to jump out now. That's good. But what I didn't do is I didn't put my kick drum in solo and make it sound awesome, and then put my snare drum in solo and make it sound awesome, and then I would listen to everything in context and say, okay, the kick drum needs a more defined point on it. I know that's going to be somewhere between a 4 and a 5K boost. Okay, the snare drum is too thin. I know that most snare drums, like sort of the body of a snare drum, lives around that 200 hertz area. So maybe I'll boost 200 hertz. But like sometimes I didn't feel like I could hear it if all the tracks were going because I didn't know what to listen for. I wasn't experienced enough. So to double check myself, I'd put it in solo, knowing specifically before I put it in solo what I was going to do. I always have a purpose. Every EQ move I make, every compression move I make, every effect send that I do off to a reverb or a delay, I have a purpose. And that is what is important. It doesn't matter if you put something in solo or if you work on it with the whole song up and running, if you have a purpose and you stay true to your purpose. So rather than say, don't use the solo button, I would just say, think about all your moves before you do them. And do them in the context of what the song needs. Don't be afraid to use the solo button if you're still learning what things sound like. As long as you use the solo button in a manner that helps you process things in context rather than processing each element on its own and then hoping that it all folds together as a cohesive mix, because it never will. Okay? So use your solo button. Don't abuse your solo button. And I would absolutely encourage you, as you become better at mixing and you have more confidence and you know how to process what it is that your ears are telling you, start moving away from the solo button a little bit. That's totally fine. They are right. Your mixes will ultimately sound better as you mix a song rather than mix a track and then another track and then another track. There is an intermediate step there to help you get from not knowing how to mix very well to being able to just pull up a track, have your faders at Unity, and get to work. I hope this little tip helps, and especially if you're just getting started, don't be discouraged. When you see guys say, "Oh yeah, don't ever hit that solo button," you're like, "Shit, I can't even hear what I'm doing if I don't hit this." Yeah, if you've only been mixing for a little while, of course you can't, because you don't know what to listen for, and that's okay. There's only one way to learn, and that's to hear it. So if you need to throw it in solo to hear it, then throw it in solo, but just have a plan for what you're going to do once it's in solo. Know what the song needs, and then throw it in solo so you can make sure you're making it happen. And then as you build up experience, and you don't need to throw things in solo as much to already anticipate what a certain EQ move is going to do, then stop throwing it in solo. And then look, you've gotten to that next level. Congratulations. All right. So I really hope this encourages you and you just continue to mix and plug away, and you do it with a purpose, because that's what it's all about. It's all about serving the song. It's not about serving the guitar solo or the snare drum or even the lead vocal tone. It's all about serving the song, and that's the only thing that matters at the end of the day. All right, y'all. If you like what you see in here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, share this video with a friend, whatever you can do, leave a comment. I really appreciate it a ton. And again, sorry I haven't been around for a couple of weeks. I will try not to ever let it happen again. Okay, take care. Until next time, guys.